All right. Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining me on this episode of Tea With Tayler. I have my managing broker and mentor. He's the owner of Inspire Realty Group, Chris Davis here.
Hey guys.
We're going to kind of go over how he got into real estate investing and hopefully provide you some valuable insight. So his office is located at 111 Douglas Avenue, downtown Elgin. It's a beautiful office. If you're around, come check it out. So anything else you want to say to begin about Inspire?
Really, welcome to Inspire. We've been around for like a year and a half. Thanks to Taylor. She was a humongous help getting the business started, and it's been a pleasure working with her, and now she's interviewing me.
Yes. And so how did you get started in, like, what were you doing before real estate, and then how did you get into doing real estate?
I actually work construction right out of high school, worked for 15 years, worked for a general contractor, and watched a bunch of TV shows years ago about flipping. And so I finally got, really just jumped in and flipped my first house. And the story kind of goes on from there, and that kind of just started my real estate career.
And so you started with flipping. How did you come, you were obviously in construction, so did you have a team from where you worked before and they started working with you? Or how did you get into doing your own flip, assuming you didn't do it just yourself?
I actually physically worked on my own flip when I first started.
Which is good, because then obviously he was in construction, but then he knows the ins and outs of what the work needs to be done while doing flip.
Yes, absolutely. So I wasn't able to do everything, but I did sub some things out, but I also did a lot of the work myself. And that kind of got me started, got my feet wet a little bit. But then as I progressed, we started hiring everything out, just because you're always out looking for houses, and it kind of got to be too much. But now we have different crews that are on the flips, and we have our own management that does the rentals also. Mm-hmm.
And as far as you started in flips, and then you started doing rentals as well, and becoming a realtor. So why did you start? What made you make the decision to become a realtor?
It's a lot of steps there. So I got into flipping, and I got my real estate license because I thought it would help me in order to get properties and find properties. Not saying that's not true. Yes, it does help to an extent, but I did figure out very quickly that I was able to make money being a realtor. So being a realtor is more you want to call it day-to-day job. Mm-hmm. And then obviously flipping is another day-to-day job. Rentals is another day-to-day job. But being a realtor is a great tool to have. I think even if you're an investor, it does give you, I think, a slight advantage, especially if you're well tuned to the market. Mm-hmm. You're always on the MLS, you're seeing what's out there. The price ranges that you're in, as far as the areas, I should say, comps and things of that sort. So it's kind of really helped me out through my career.
And what does your day-to-day look like?
My day-to-day is crazy.
On the phone, 24/7, earpiece. Yes.
Yeah, you're starting, my day starts at like 5 a.m. every morning. Not necessarily on the phone at 5 a.m., but at least going through emails and things of that sort. Of course, you do have people that are texting you at 6 a.m., and it never stops, or calls never stops until 9, 10 o'clock at night, sometimes even later, unfortunately, but most of the time I'm sleeping after that. But yes, it tends to get quite busy.
In between investing, flipping, and being a realtor, what's the most demanding part of the job?
Most demanding, I think, is actually being a realtor overall. I much rather just invest if I just had that time just to invest. But I also really enjoy being a realtor too, all at the same time. So I know it kind of conflicts itself a little bit. But less demand on the investing side, I think, as far as your day-to-day goes. Because you can just do your flips, and let's just say you're just in charge of your construction sites, right? Your guys are showing up at 7 a.m., they're leaving 4 o'clock-ish, and after that, either you're looking for houses or something like that, but you can really cut off your day, at 5 to 6 o'clock.
So you would say for flipping, it's more internal, just your team. You have more control over that. Where when it's a realtor, you're dealing with so many different people, and many people, when they're buying and selling a home, especially for the first time, it's a very emotional process for them. So you have to be available to them at all hours of the day. You know, sometimes you do try and cut it off at a certain point, but it is a very demanding part of the job.
100%. You know, even adding to, you know, yes, your client, you're dealing with your clients on a day-to-day basis all day long. You're dealing with new clients on a day-to-day basis all day long. But it's just, once you get a house under contract for a client, it's just not dealing with that client all the time. You're dealing with their attorney, you're dealing with their mortgage lender, you're dealing with the other agent on the other side. So you have multiple phone calls, multiple emails on one house that you have under contract.
So you mean you don't just show people houses and do whatever you want?
No, unfortunately not. It gets a little bit crazy at times, especially when you have multiple deals under contract at one time like we do. We're very high volume, so, but we take that high volume to a maximum where we still can service our clients, you know, everybody equally, and they're getting our full services.
Yeah, and which I had the opportunity to work with Chris, so it helped me out as a new realtor. We do a lot through Zillow, so it's a little bit different than some other realtors where you are speaking to a higher volume amount of people because you're answering calls. Now, not all of those convert into actual clients, but you're on the phone a lot more, you're talking to a lot more new people, you're having, like, what would you say is the most difficult part of any of the jobs? Let's talk about realtor at first. What is the most difficult part, do you think, of being a realtor?
I think managing your time. Managing your time is always very, very difficult. It's just because you're once again, if you have something to do, let's just say between 8 and 10 o'clock, right, and you're trying to get either paperwork done or you're getting contracts written, in between that time, unfortunately, your phone is not stopping. Either people are texting you or people are calling you, so you're getting sidetracked, and then this, for your first project you were starting on, is getting pushed to a later time. And then you're out showing houses from XYZ. You have a lot of last minute showings that we get called on all the time. So it's time management is probably the most difficult thing to do.
And like, I do quite a bit of deals, and I, you know, have an issue doing that, but just for somewhat of reference, you closed about 75 deals last year?
Roughly,
yes.
Roughly.
So just imagine that. And I would say one of the best things, or not most difficult, but probably to start, and then I've gotten better as the time gone on being a realtor, is learning how to talk to people in having difficult conversations in emotional situations, because you're talking with so many different people and everyone's different, so you have to tailor your strategy or the way you communicate with people to each individual client. So
speaking on that though, hang on. On that though, our job does suck at times, for sure. Like Taylor just said, you know, we do unfortunately deliver bad news, definitely on a weekly basis, and it never ends. Unfortunately, you know, it's either bad news that we didn't get a property, or we have to call the other agent. We have to kill a deal because. You know, number one, our client had cold feet, or we found something during the inspection, or whatever it is, right? You know, our job is also, we're trying to keep everybody happy, right? And it's just not our side, we want to keep both sides happy, right? Because you're also building that relationship with that other agent. And so it's always very difficult to give any type of bad news, but yeah, it never changes.
And a lot of times the bad news, not all the time, it's out of our control about what's going on. If it's their loan or if it's something with the inspection. So we have to figure out a way to take responsibility for that, because we are the agent, but not blaming ourselves for the deal not working out. So if you had to pick, obviously you like both, between investing in Realtor, which do you enjoy more and why?
I personally like investing better. Really both on the rental side and on the flipping side, to be quite honest with you. Once again, I can definitely control my hours a little bit better, but that goes into the next thing too, as far as rentals go. You know, once again, you are on call 24/7, having rentals, but I have it down to a system now. If I do have a problem at a rental property, let's just say anything that happens, right? You got a leaky faucet or something like that. I mean, stuff happens all the time. It is a quick phone call, you know.
So now you have guys, you have like a team that can go and run and do that for you. And as far as investing goes, what does your portfolio look like?
Mind you, now we started 9 years ago-ish, somewhere right in there. Started off with one rental, and now we're up to somewhere around 77, 78 doors. We are into multifamilies. I enjoy that a little bit better than the single families. I did get started in single families, and then I kind of progressed into the multifamily world. I think according to my numbers, you can make a little bit more money into the multifamily world. When I mean multifamily, small multifamilies, 2 unit.
What's the largest building you have?
A 6-unit building. That is the largest. 1 5-unit, and all the rest are 2, 3s, and 4s.
In most of your buildings, you've kind of found a niche. You like the Elgin market, and you try and keep them close. For one, you learn the market, but then two, everything's closer together. You're not driving an hour for one property if something goes wrong to another hour. Is that part of your strategy?
That is. It does make it easier for me to manage that way. I would say the entire portfolio is roughly within, I would say, a 5-mile radius. And that kind of, it does sum it up. So it is pretty easy when there is issues or you're doing multiple projects on rental properties, things of that sort, that you can, run to each one.
And you started, you said, about 9 years ago. And so kind of give us a view into when you started, you had about this many buildings. And then I'm assuming as time moved on, you had equity in other buildings. You built maybe a relationship with a partner as money goes. And then how it expanded, and just kind of give insight that like once you kind of get rolling, the ball ends up growing and growing and growing if you manage it correctly and run your numbers correctly.
Yes, that is correct. So, really though, when I started flipping, I took my profits from my flip and put them aside. And
so you didn't live off of it?
I did not live off of it. Even today, I still do not. And so that's how I was able to purchase my first rental. Then we got into our second and third. But with the rents, the profit that I actually off of the rents, okay, we actually still to this day, it goes into a bank account and it just accumulates. We do not pay ourselves off of rents. And that's how we're able to buy our next building. Always looking to buy. You kind of set goals in life, right? And I have a goal where I want to be as far as cash flow goes. And not necessarily how many doors, you can have 1,000 doors, and only cash flow a certain amount of money. I want X amount of dollars a month cash flowing until I get to that goal, then we will continue.
Then you'll relax a little bit.
I don't know about relaxing, but but no, you continue to go ahead and purchase until you get to your goal.
And how do you, when you see a property either on the market, I know you buy a lot through auction, which we'll kind of touch on. How do you go about figuring out your numbers? Do you have like a bottom line? You have to at least make this much, or do you take each property as an individual?
As far as the rental side of things, we will not purchase a rental property. So here, let me take this one back one more step. So we do financing, obviously. That's how we finance all the rental properties.
Yeah.
Okay, we do commercial loans only. Commercial lending is a lot easier to get lending, especially when you make relationships with smaller banks. And I made a couple of relationships with a couple banks. And saying that though,
you do 15-year notes.
We do 15-year mortgages, and we put down 25% of the purchase price on every single building. Of that 25%, I have to make a minimum of 15 to 20% return on my money, unless I will not touch the building.
And so would you say putting those guidelines is essential to being successful, because you're not afraid to turn away from a deal even though if it doesn't hit your criteria? So it's almost like some of your best deals are the ones you don't purchase because you don't lose money.
That is correct. I do see, even in Tayler and I, we also deal with investors even on the real estate side of things, and I even tell our investors the same thing that I do, the same strategy, right? Everybody thinks that, oh, hey, I'm gonna make like $200 a month on this house, on a single family or condo, whatever it is. And really you're making like 10%, or you're making 8% on your monies, which really doesn't make any sense for all the hassle that you have to go through, because it's truly work though. It's just not collecting rent every single month. You actually physically have to work.
And you're dealing with people. It's a very people intensive. I mean, of course, some clients are more low key than others, but they're living in your building. And unless you want a bad reputation or to have continuous conflicts with your tenants, you want to have a good relationship, and you want to make sure they're comfortable living in your building, because then they'll take care of your building, and hopefully that's one less thing that you have to worry about when you have good tenants.
Yeah, that's one thing I do enjoy too, is also talking with my tenants on a daily basis. Maybe not so much on a daily basis, but I can drive by my buildings, and there's if there's people outside, I will definitely stop. You can always chit chat. I even bought kids ice cream a couple weeks ago when there was a little ice cream truck driving by as I was standing out there with them, and so that's kind of cool, and that's always fun too.
And all these avenues of him working in real estate, even though they're all different, they do somewhat tie together, because for one, it's your reputation. Now you have your own brokerage, so that reflects on it, as well as your tenants know people. your clients know people, so eventually all of that will come back to you and hopefully getting a referral or maybe a building that people are thinking about listing. So it's always important to put your best foot forward and be nice and responsible to each and every person, because it's a large world but a small world, and words travel fast. So as far as flips and buying at auction, can you give a little bit of insight of how you do that, and maybe warnings to people, because you're a little bit more experienced, that auctions can be very sketchy sometimes?
Yes, so going to the auction, so definitely have to do your research on the properties, right? That's number one. When I say research, title search. When you're buying from the auction, you're just buying that particular note. In cash, which is a mortgage, or which is a mortgage on that property. You have to make sure that's actually the first mortgage that's on the property and not the second mortgage. You have to make sure that the taxes have been paid, or if they have not, that the back taxes are in your numbers. When you purchase in a regular market, let's just say, you're using a realtor and it goes to the MLS and you have a regular closing, your title is you have title insurance and the taxes are all caught up and everything like that. There's nothing to worry about. When you're buying from the auction, you have to worry about all those particular items. I have seen people that have bought in second notes, which now they really don't own the house because...
So is that like a lien on the property?
That is correct. Yeah. It's a second mortgage. And then the first mortgage actually holds precedence of that property. So they really didn't buy the property. They just bought a note that just got paid off. So which is very damaging, because let's just say they spent $50,000 on a second note and they have nothing to show for it. And majority of the time, the first mortgage does not work with that person. So
with auctions, buyer beware. Maybe if you were considering doing an auction, maybe partner with someone who's experienced in it and offer some of your funds, and then you can kind of walk through them through that process. I wouldn't suggest buying your first property from an auction. Like he said, he has a construction background and now he's been doing it a little bit longer, so he knows what to look for. Looking at properties, what are some things that if you see it, you kind of avoid that property or moving forward?
So that's probably the hardest thing to do when you're actually going through an auction, right? Sometimes the properties are occupied, sometimes they're vacant, right? Really shouldn't be getting into the vacant properties, but you got to do what you got to do. But no, in all assets, you're looking at foundations.
Follow the law, okay?
There you go. Exactly. But no, you're looking at the major things right away, even looking at the outside of the house, looking at the foundation, the roof, the windows, if you can peek through the windows. But in all assets, it's the most expensive things, right? Foundation is probably the biggest. And then you kind of run your numbers backwards and kind of see exactly where you're at. What is your sale price when it's done and finished and flipped? And then minus your rehab costs, and minus your closing costs, and then minus your purchase, and then that's where your profit will then be.
So you want to make sure you run your numbers. Like he mentioned, that he has a certain percentage or amount that he wants to make to deem the property valuable in order to move forward. So you guys want to come up with that too. You don't want to just buy a property because you're really interested in getting to real estate, because it could be a very poor decision. So as far as investing and being a realtor, what are some of the biggest hurdles you've encountered, or the biggest lessons that you've learned from doing? You can pick which one that has caused you the most maybe headache.
The most headaches is...
Rather than the day-to-day of real estate transactions, right. Like something that you learned from, I guess.
I guess you kind of learn my mistakes, right? Kind of what Taylor was just saying, be careful of what you buy. We've bought in houses before, one in particular, which was totally out of my area. Usually didn't go into that area, and somebody brought me the deal. They wanted to partner up, and it kind of sounded good. I didn't do my own due diligence. This was years ago, but I did not do my own due diligence on it. And they told me the numbers, and I believed them. And then we got to the finish line. We ended up making almost zero on the property. We did not lose, but when I mean almost, it was probably lucky to make $500. So
what lesson did you learn from that?
To do my own due diligence. But yes, now, once again, that was really when I first started, and I've learned by that lesson the entire time, and I won't touch a property unless I know for sure what I am getting myself into. Now, saying that, though, there's always surprises. We just actually did one here in Elgin, and there was no water meter. And brought the city in to put a water meter in, and their ordinances have changed, different rules for different heights and things of that sort, where the water meter needs to go. And the city made me actually put in a new service line, which was about a $6,000 problem that was unexpected.
So that being said, going into real estate, whether it be purchasing a home or investing, make sure you have some funds. Like, don't borrow money from family or put your whole life savings if you don't know what you're doing, because you can lose money. And thankfully, he's experienced, and it wouldn't break him if an expense like that came up. Like, you would.
Wouldn't break, but it still hurts.
It still hurts. It always hurts. Losing money always hurts, for sure.
But I would tell anybody to, instead of just flipping, is really look into rentals themselves. I think you can be more.
That's actually how I met Chris.
Yes.
He helped me buy my first multi-unit, where I live in one unit and rent out the other. And besides the updates that I've had to do, I essentially live for free. Now that doesn't come for free because I work for it too. But I actually wanted to mention that if you're looking for rentals or in a normal market, because right now it's 2021 and the market's fucking insane, but in a normal market, you can kind of find deals on the MLS. I found mine on the MLS. But I suggest having a realtor that's also an investor too. So they can provide you some insight or let you know, give you an experienced opinion, not just someone who's a realtor, nothing against them, but it's not, if it's your first time, you really would want someone who has the experience in investing to work with if you're looking for an investment property. Yeah,
and that's very true. So I also found probably about 50% of my portfolio on the rental side of things from the MLS. So it's just not, once again, it's a numbers game. It's not, I like the house, it looks beautiful. No, you have to physically make money on it if you're gonna buy it and keep it.
It's business.
It's business, plain and simple.
And since he mentioned this, so I wanna actually, so talking about the government and the water meters, and you don't have to go too far in depthly if you don't want to, but as far as, can you just touch on how much influence government regulation and legislation has not only on investing, but operating a business, and that it's really important to be involved or be aware of the locality that you're doing business in?
Yeah, 100%. So lately we've been kind of getting our ass kicked. Not gonna lie, right? Number one, we had the pandemic, right? Everybody's been through the pandemic, I get it. But it really hurt us landlords more than really people realize. We had people not paying us rent. Of course, not everybody didn't.
And we couldn't take action.
That is correct. So, I still have tenants to this day. What are we in 2021 June, right? And so we're over what, a year and a half into the pandemic thing. But anyways, point being, as I still have tenants that are not paying in full, and I have to be super, super nice to them, hoping they're going to give me some of my money. But if I say anything, they can turn around and say, "Yeah, I'm not going to pay you anything right now because there's a moratorium right now, and it has not been lifted yet, so there's no evictions." So hopefully they're going to lift that here shortly. I don't have too many problems with that, or I say I don't have too many tenants with that problem, but the issue is right now when somebody does not pay me on the first or the second, I can't really truly go after them just yet or be hard on them like I used to be, just because I'm trying to be nice because I do want my money. I don't want them to turn around and say, "No, I'm not going to pay."
And for some of you who may not be in the landlord business, just keep in mind if you are renting that if your rent goes up, there's a good chance your rent is going up because taxes went up, or there's a new fee or a new registration that has to be applied and that the landlord has to purchase. Well, they have to help make up that loss or that cost, and so it gets pushed down to the renters. So when we're looking to government to facilitate or cause more regulation and legislation, thinking it's going to help the renters and the buyers is actually an additional cost that just gets passed down to them. And I just wanted to mention that because I always have to put my 2 cents in as far as government overreach goes. So we kind of touched on how he got into it and his process going through that, investing and being a realtor. Since you are a busy guy, what impact does that have on your personal life? I know you are a father and a husband, so.
Yeah, so I have 3 kids and I am married. I'm never home, so that's not such a good thing, right? But at the same time, I'm learning to kind of manage it just a little bit. Sundays are kind of my days where I kind of like to take off just a little bit if I can, to spend time with the kids and things of that sort. Have got involved with sports with my kids. I do coach one of my daughter's teams, and it is kind of nice. That 3-4 times a week where I have the 2 hours in the evenings to shut my phone off, where I call Taylor and say, hey, take all the phone calls. But no, in all seriousness, it's this job working, well, you're basically working 3 jobs, at least what I do. Taylor's also working nonstop also, but
mine's not as demanding, but yes.
but she does Tea with Tayler.
Yes.
Working,
and I don't have children, I have a cat.
But working minimum 10 to 14 hours a day. It does take a toll. It is 7 days a week. But the way I look at it is do it now and try to be as successful as you can. And when all your friends are still working when they're 50 and they continue to work, you're going to be retired and you'll be on the beach. That is the plan. That is the goal.
Yeah, so that's what's next for you. Not only are you going to kick up your feet, because I find that you'd be really bored. Eventually, you want to be able to at least have passive income and have more control over when you work and when you don't work.
That is correct. So take your rentals, right? And this is the whole goal, is to take the rentals, make it the business, and grow that business to that goal that you want on a monthly basis, right? Once you have that in place, then you can travel. You can not just just sit up with your keep fit every day in your living room watching TV, but physically you can travel. You can do what you want. You can go fishing. You can bike rides, hiking, enjoy life, right? It's just not all about work. I'm learning about that. It's very difficult for me because I do love to work, but I do have goals. Yes.
But I think that's just so important for those people who want the nice things. Well, you're very moderate. You're not a big spender. Your family's moderate, even though you might have the funds to do something, you don't spend it, and you have a good outlook that if you don't spend it now, you'll have it later. And it's really true when people say, the rich get richer, and when the more money you have, the more opportunities you have. But you had humble beginnings. You worked for what you have, and you still work a lot. And there are sacrifices as far as going out. He has children, hanging out with his children, his wife. But if you want to be very successful, if you want to be a business owner, you have to make those sacrifices and hope that in the future you'll have more leisure time. And it's up to the individual to make those decisions. But it's not easy. Like he just said, he works like 14 hours a day. So even though some people might see that he's an agent or a landlord and think it's very easy, maybe have somewhat of a nice car. Your car's nice, but
Oh, thank you.
it's not, you know what I'm saying? Those things cost money and cost your time. So I want to wrap it up, unless you want to touch on that at all.
No, I agree with what you actually just said.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would live always underneath your means. I don't know everything out there, right? But I do try to, I live very frugally. I do that on purpose. Just like I said, I do have a goal where I want to be, and after that, it's pretty much vacation time, right? But until I get to that goal, I have to work, and so it's not go out every single week and go to the bars and go buy Gucci purses and this and that, right? It's live within your means, and I'm not saying don't go enjoy life, but you still have
in
to live
moderation.
within it. Yes, 100%.
So words of advice that you have to people, either in just business or if they want to get into real estate, so we can kind of wrap it up that way.
Words of advice: keep your head down, work hard. Don't, at least try not to have municipalities and government bug you all the time, even though it really pisses us all off. But at the same time, you still have to keep your head down and you have to work. You can't change everything. You can change some things, but you still have to provide for yourself and for your family, and make goals. If you don't have goals, you don't have
direction.
Exactly.
And I would just touch on that. Obviously, make goals and learn what you can control and what you can't control. And for the things you can control, do your best at them, because in everything, there's so much around us that we can't control, and that's just life. So how do you stay sane?
I drink. No, I'm joking. I'm just joking. No, exercise for sure. I work out in the morning time. Not that anybody cares, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
It does give you that it's your time. type of deal, and your stress and your frustrations, you got to let them out somehow, some way. I wouldn't like drink your sorrows away or drink every night.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it, but yes.
So hopefully you guys found this valuable if you're interested in real estate or just a perspective on someone who's achieved a lot and what it takes and the sacrifices it does to do that. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to interview, and I will see you guys soon.
It's been
Thank
a pleasure.
you.
Bye, guys.
Hey y'all, thank you for watching that episode of Tea with Tayler. I hope the conversation with the owner of Inspire Realty Group, managing broker, and my mentor for the last 4 years brought you some insight and valuable information. They say that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Well, for the last 4 years, I've spoken to and spent probably the most time with Chris. I live in Illinois, and he's kind of taken me under his wing as far as the real estate industry goes, and it's been tremendous for me. So I hope some of that information was valuable to you, and just keep in mind of how important it is who you surround yourself with, who you listen to, and who you learn from. So if you did find that video interesting and informative, I have another video called House Hacking where I provide information as to how I got into house hacking, and I live in one unit and rent the other, and I live for a very modest amount, as well as I have another interview with one of my friends, Nate Gould, who is a loan officer, on how to get pre-approved for a loan and some of the insight on the loan process. So if you are interested in either of those videos, check them out. Thank you for watching. And if you found value from any of the videos, please consider sharing. I greatly appreciate it. And God bless. I wish you much health and success. Again, thank you for watching.